We started? Wait, what happened here? Wait, what the heck's wrong? What the heck? Wait. The heck? Yeah. Wait. Thanks. There you go. And we are live. Welcome to another episode of Business Focus Live with me, John, where we talk about business related topics as well as news from here around the world. If you're new to this channel, don't forget to subscribe and let's get started. And we're back. Thank you again for joining me today. Had a rough start here. Had some technical difficulties. Hopefully, I was able to fix it in time. Otherwise, had to cancel the rest of the stream. But anyway, so to start off with today's discussion, so we have a lot of things to talk about. So first is all about the movie industry. Now we've been talking about this for the past few weeks and months that with how the pandemic has affected many businesses, in particular the tourism industry, the airline industry, and now the entertainment industry, in particular the movie industry. That how many of the films that were supposed to be released sometime last year had to be pushed back, and those that were released, didn't do so well. Today we'll be talking about the year in review of sorts of which films did better than some, and you'll be surprised to find out which of it. Now, based on the title, obviously it's a dead giveaway. So the film that ruled the box office for the year 2020 is none other than the film Bad Boys for Life. Now, personally, I haven't seen the film. It looks interesting. I've seen the previous sequels, the original, the first one, and the sequel. So looking forward to watching it on the different streaming services. So let's take a closer look here. So compared to 2019, obviously films such as what was it? The film Avengers did really well, and as well as the film, what was it? Yeah, the Star Wars. Yeah, the Rise of Skywalker, and which was released I think late last year, December, and then it had the spillover the following year, which is 2020. Now, obviously, in terms of the box office result for 2020, it has a split personality of sorts, wherein it boasted a strong performance pre-pandemic, wherein, it was severely hampered when, the pandemic broke out somewhere around mid-March. So, movie theaters had to be shut down. Films have been, there's no way for people to watch them for some time, weeks or even months on end. So, but once the lockdown was lifted, movie theaters were allowed to open again. There was a severe what they call this drop down in terms of moviegoers, who are willing to risk going to the movie theaters and watch different films. So let's take a closer look here. So obviously, as you can see here, the top grosser is, the film, what do you call this? Uh, Bad Boys for Life, starring Will Smith. Anyway, so studios were able to release films before the pandemic, shown a significant, boost in performance, which carried over for the rest of the year. So I'll show you a data regarding the performance, which films did really well apart from the film Bad Boys. So as I mentioned, so the bulk of the box office receipts that many of the you know big movie outfits generated a little over $2 billion of box office receipts, which was due to the first 3 months before the pandemic hit. So that lasted from January 1st all the way to mid-March, around mid-March 19. So that's pertaining to US territories as well as in Canadian territories. Now, as for the remainder of the year, you'll be surprised to find out there was only a revenues of almost 400 million between April all the way to December. So obviously, it's understandable of a sudden drop off in the sales or movie tickets. Now, here are some of the movie, what do you call this? Big studios that will benefited from releasing films at the start of the year. So let's start off first with Universal. So they delayed majority of their films late to 2020 or sometime this year, 2021. And when theaters began to open, it became more clear that audiences were not returning. So that is a problem. That's why in previous discussion it was mentioned that for those movie outfits, they sought to find an alternative in terms of not just releasing their films in movie theaters, but using their own streaming platform services to bolster their revenue. But obviously, it's a total different experience, and not everyone is willing to spend whatever the subscription fee every month just to watch one particular film. And obviously, it's totally different when you're watching it in the movie theater with other people, different experience, as compared to watching it at home at your own comforts at your own living room and so forth. Now, what they did is, as mentioned, they also did is to shorten the length of time that films typically stay in the cinemas before being able to watch it on streaming or being able to purchase it or even buy DVDs or Blu-rays in this case. So obviously the focus now has shifted to place its film on premium video on demand or streaming services as mentioned. And Peacock, which is owned by Universal's NBC, obviously wanted to capitalize on that, and such films as 1917 was released way back in 2019, did really well. So it garnered around 158 million for 2020. Now obviously that's pre-pandemic. And then they released other films such as Doolittle, which I haven't seen. I think that was is it with Eddie Murphy or with, I forgot what's the, or Robert Downey Jr. I forgot. I haven't seen that film, which only took 78 million. So you can just imagine, big movie outfits typically expect to generate hundreds or even billions of dollars of box office receipts. But, getting to 100 million mark is a big tall order already. Another film that did well is Invisible Man. I think it's a thrill film, which only garnered around $70 million. Now, obviously, other films were released, had so-and-so performance. Another company, Walt Disney, or the Disney company themselves, were able to release some films, like I think Mulan was released this year, but to mix reviews and performances and so forth. And obviously the shrinkage or fewer people being able to go out and watch the film, hampered their performance significantly. So they had to displace many of their titles that were supposed to be released last year. Such films, the two Marvel films, I think that was Shang-Chi, which I will be discussing in a little bit, which will be later released this year. And then, I forgot what's the other one. I forgot. I'll go back to it later. And then there were other two popular films. The Emily Blunt and Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson's partnership the film Jungle Cruise, which will be released again later this year, as well as the Stephen Sondheim's West Side Story. Anyway, and as mentioned, so last year they were able to offer up, the film movie Mulan, but offer it in their streaming services Disney Plus for a $30 subscription fee. Now, obviously, the highest grossing film for 2020 for Disney is Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker, and which you will be surprised to find out, it only tallied 128 million for the year 2020, sorry. And it was the fifth highest grossing films of the domestic box office, meaning, I watched the film, but, I didn't really like the tone of how, the story went compared to the original series or original series that became before it. But obviously, let's see here, which films were able to fare better than most. So I was surprised to find out that, obviously, where was it? I forgot the date. There you go. I was surprised to find out that Bad Boys for Life, as mentioned, generate more than 200 million. Second was 1917. I think it's a drama pick. Then Sonic Hedgehog. Obviously, this was a holdover from the previous year. Did, 150. Then you have Jumanji, which was released last year. Even Star Wars. And then this year, Birds of Prey, Doolittle, Invisible Man, and The Call of the Wild, garnered, somewhere between 100 to less than $100 million here. And obviously, you can expect them to outperform in previous years, similar to how Avengers performed, whether it's Endgame or the first one. So, but come this year, what are we supposed to expect? So, are moviegoers excited to be able to watch several films that are slated to be released? And as I mentioned, Warner Brothers have already planned that they will simultaneously release films both in the theaters as well as the streaming services. So consumers or moviegoers have an option to watch wherever they prefer. Now, obviously, it makes sense for for those companies to push for people to go to the movie theater so they can maximize their revenue. But obviously, on the other hand, the risk of safety and the ongoing crisis, which is continuing to rise on different cities and countries as well, to name a few. So it's a big problem for many movie goers. So as mentioned here, so what are the movies that you can look forward later this year? Now, there are several films that are slated to be released. So let's take a closer look here. Let's see. Where was it? Okay. There you go. So here are the most anticipated films for 2021. So you can look forward to them, whether you want to watch it at home or, hopefully, if it's safe enough to go out there, will you be going to the nearest movie theater to watch the different films? So let's start with, let's see, what's the first one? Yeah, so this is for family. So later next month, you have Tom and Jerry. So it's a cartoons for kids. Raya the Last Dragon. You have Chaos Walking around March. The Kingsman. So here's a very interesting film. So it's from the Kingsman, right? If you've seen that series, so I've enjoyed the previous two iterations of the Kingsman. So it goes back way before, where Eggsy was indoctrinated in that series or in that movie. So I'm looking forward to it. So, but the question is, where will you watch it? Will you go to the movie theaters? This is going to be released sometime in March, so it's going to be a problematic endeavor where to watch it. Then you have Godzilla vs. Kong. So this is going to be a very jam-packed, exciting film. Obviously, this is going to be released in HBO Max. So sad to say, here in our country, we don't have access. Even if you have VPN, you need to have a credit card that is accessible or has a link in a United States territories account. Otherwise, it won't matter if you have VPN here. I've tried. I know. So we won't be able to see any HBO Max films anytime soon. Anyway, then in April, mid-April, Mortal Kombat is going to be released. So looking forward to that one. Again, if you've seen the first part of the A Quiet Place, so for those who are interested, obviously sad to say the main character John Krasinski is not there anymore, but looking forward to what will happen next in this version. Ah, yeah. The other, this is the one I forgot earlier. So the other Marvel's movie that was slated supposed to be released last year has been pushed back all the way to May of this year. Now, whether that's going to generate hundreds of millions of dollars, one can only be optimistic. I'm sure Disney is, worried about in terms of the performance that it would generate. Anyway, then there's Free Guy. Ah, yeah. So in around end of May, you have the Fast and the Furious. It's now called F9. So they keep on making it shorter and shorter. So hopefully it'll make a compelling case for people to watch the continued series without, what's his name? I forgot the name of the character that died in the previous film. Anyway, so hopefully we can see the continuation saga of the Fast and Furious franchise. Then you have Cruella. I think that's based on the 101 Dalmatian. Then in June, you have Peter Rabbit 2. Let's see what else. Ah, yeah. So this is something. So for Marvel fans, so you have Venom. So it's a continuation of the first Venom movie, which did well. So I'm looking forward to see how they're going to incorporate the story with Carnage here as the main villain here. Then the highly controversial Top Gun sequel, Maverick, which will be slated to be released later this July. So, an older, wiser Maverick is in this film. Anyway, so similarly, which will be released simultaneously is Minions: The Rise of Gru. So way back when he was younger. So I think kids would love this. I think my kids would enjoy watching this. And then another Marvel character that's going to be released this year is Shanty. I'm not familiar with this character, so I'm looking forward to if it's an interesting story or not. Then later in July, you have Space Jam, which will be headed by LeBron James. So will there be what do you call this, cameo from Michael Jordan of sorts? Would be nice. Then as I mentioned, you have Jungle Cruise, which will be released later that month. Then you have Suicide Squad. Hopefully they'll make a better performance than when they first released it. So that will be released in August. Then what else? You have Dune, Morbius, so another DC character, which will be played by Jared Leto. So we'll see how it works. Then this is the one I'm looking forward to. So you have No Time to Die, the last iteration for the James Bond, which will be helmed by Daniel Craig here. Then you have Halloween Kills, In Time for Halloween. Then you have Eternals, Ghostbusters Afterlife. And for December, the big blockbuster films that will be released is West Side Story. Then you have Spider-Man 3, where Tom Holland's in his third standalone film. And finally, The Matrix 4. This is the one that I'm really looking forward. So I'm a big fan of Keanu Reeves from The Matrix, all the way to the John Wick series, and now in the latest release of Matrix 4. So a lot of films going to be released. Hopefully, good quality films that makes a compelling case for people to catch up and watch many of those. Anyway, continue with our story. So, sticking with entertainment now, obviously, movie films have been a standard staple for many of us, right? Watching films online or whether in a movie theater is a different experience. But the question here is, there's now an viable option of not just watching movie theaters, but watching it at the confines of your home. And one of the more popular streaming services, which is Netflix, which is ironically, I'm a subscriber myself, which I recently did late last year with the lockdown. That's you're stuck at home, you have limited options as entertainment. They offer a very compelling case. Lots of content, but very affordable pricing. Anyway, one of the main issues here in this article, according to Full.com, that Netflix lost a billion hours worth of content. So just to put it in context, so one of the more popular series that people are watching at home is The Office, which was helmed by not the one with Ricky Gervais. What's the name? The US version, yeah, that's it. And obviously, the series which was owned by NBC Universal, which have already opened their own streaming app services called Peacock, have already, taken away the rights for that series. But actually, right now, if you still subscribe, you can still watch the series in different territories, in different regions. So there's still time. I think it ends until end of January, I think. So question here is, the Office popularity, was it because of Netflix, or is it because of the audience in the streaming services? So I think it's a mutual relationship, that obviously the big giant that is Netflix is pushing different contents to different moviegoers. And obviously, if you were to look at some of the more popular series, is The Office is one of them. So let's take a closer look here. So let's see here. So if we were to scroll down here, so here are some of the favorite TV series, and look at the platform. What do they all have in common? So from The Office, Grey's Anatomy, Criminal Minds, Ozark, NCIS, and what else? You also have Schitt's Creek, Supernatural, Lucifer, Shameless, The Crown. All of them are being streamed in Netflix platform. So it just goes to show that, the more popular, series are being watched in that, in Netflix. And, is it a big blow for the company? Obviously, but at the end of the day, it's the content that matters, right? And sorry, one of my main contentions here is, if other companies are going to provide their own streaming services, whether it's HBO Max, Disney Plus, or Amazon Prime, and then you have Netflix competing from one. Actually, there's even Apple TV, right? We're just going back to to the old previous times when we were watching free TV, cable TV, and then now we're in different streaming services that if you want to watch a particular TV series, you have to pay separately and so forth. For me, I'd rather stick to one if that's preferable. So obviously, it's a case-to-case basis for different individuals here. So if you were to take a closer look here, as mentioned, so one of the popular films that I've seen so far is I'm rewatching the entire series of Criminal Minds. I was able to finish it before, so hopefully I can finish it this year. And Ozark is a very good story, and obviously based on the moviegoers, many people who are watching. And NCIS, I've watched bits and pieces of it. Lucifer, I haven't watched. Shameless as well, and The Crown as well. So again, does this mean doom and gloom for the big giant, which is Netflix? No, not necessarily. Obviously, the company is able to push users to whatever content that they are trying to maximize in terms of efficiency, and then as well as content spending in the long run here. Now, one of the articles that states here, it mentions that, are you familiar with the TV series Tiger King? So it's not a very popular series, but obviously with the right marketing, or in this case, the best billboard in the business, which is the home screen of Netflix. So if you log in, obviously whatever it's in the home screen, they'll try to push in or find the algorithms that you're interested in watching based on your previous viewing. And in my case, I've watched several films, so they'll try to connect me with the films of similar genres or time frame. If I like watching older films, they'll show me several similar films, right? I think the last film that I watched was 2012, The Day After Tomorrow. So it varies depending on your preference for that particular day. And again, obviously for Netflix, one of its key advantages here is it turned out that the best place to talk to subscribers about Netflix is on Netflix. So the point here is getting to the customers directly is the best way to garner more loyalty, more content, and so forth. So the key here is, and one of the advantages here as compared to the other companies, is with so much data on its subscribers' viewing habits, they are able to maintain engagement even after losing, The Office or any other licensed series. I think the series that they own is Stranger Things. I haven't watched that yet. The Witcher, I finished the season 1. Looking forward to season 2. Now, question is, will this impact them because of stronger competition? Yeah, in a sense, it will push them to provide better services, better products, and so forth, and invest more, which is good for the consumers at the end of the day. Now, in the likes of Disney, obviously, they're very popular right now with their plethora of their libraries of older films. But obviously, moving forward, you need content to drive consumers to stay in your platform. And in this case, Mandalorian is one of their, you know, key reasons why many moviegoers, especially Star Wars fans, are switching to Disney Plus right now. Now, I've seen bits and pieces of The Mandalorian. It's very compelling. It's a very interesting story. Totally different from, what we've been seeing in the big screen. So kudos for them. Baby Yoda. So it's very it's very compelling if you've seen bits and pieces of the film, the series. And using the technology is another thing. You can see they're not using green screen, they're using a somewhat LED or OLED screen that simulates the external shots, which is kind of astonishing with improved technology and so forth. But again, at the end of the day, Netflix advantage lies in its ability to spend its content budget more efficiently compared to other competitors due to its large subscriber base and bounty of viewer data. So in the case of Comcast, they have to pay $500 million for the rights to air The Office, as mentioned. So obviously, Netflix can get away at some level of engagement with far less spending, which is, it's a big deal for them, and gives them the flexibility in terms of content budget and ensures that it doesn't have to overspend. Now, obviously, time will tell if this is a long-term strategy that would be beneficial for them and for their customer base. And at the end of the day, Netflix cash flow as it retains and adds subscribers without spending more than it has to be. Anyway, continuing with subscription services. So if you like a services, you should be able to unsubscribe if if you don't want to use it. Like in my case, I tried out using Amazon Prime, watching what their content is or library is, but I only like one of the series, which is the Grand Tour. If you're a car buff, but for the rest, not so much. I already subscribed to Netflix, and based on the content, I prefer the content over Amazon. So I unsubscribe in a sense. But in this article, according to Tech Times, which is they're calling it dark times if you're trying to cancel your subscription service, and they're being sued, and they're complaining to the FTC, to their government, so that they can do something about the situation here. So let's take a closer look here. Yeah. So as I mentioned, Amazon's Prime subscription service is easy to use and interactive up until the rigorous cancellation process. So yeah, so one of the negatives here is if you try to unsubscribe, it's easy to use the platform. So is it by accident or by why is it by choice that if you're going to make it difficult for consumers, is it the fault of the consumers if they want to change their mind or leave your services? Then provide a better service in the first place, right? If you make a compelling case for consumers to stay in your platform, then they would stay, right? And go to this lens just to be able to say that consumers can't leave or look for another alternative if there's no other option and you're stuck with them. And one of the consumer group has mentioned that they're stating that the cancellation process violates Section 5 of the FTA Act, which is considered unfair and deceptive act. So another consumer group, the Norwegian Consumer Council, has uploaded the video that narrates and agrees that Amazon's Prime subscription service cancellation is practicing dark patterns that misled people in trying to change their minds. Now, whether that's fair, that's illegal, it's for the government to decide on this one. Obviously, the long process here, so let me show you what I mean. So here's a good example of its long, tedious process. So you have to go through different steps. So from clicking and head to account settings, so that's the first one. Then you go to the Search Prime subscription tab, and once you click that, you go to the Manage Membership. Then you click End Membership. Should be finished, right? Then you would go to another page, scroll through Prime's benefits, select Cancel My Benefit, then redirect you to another page that suggests you to a different payment method, then continue to cancel, found in another tab, and farewell. Message by Amazon. So they're really asking you, are you really sure you want to cancel? Do you want to stay? Look at the benefits of our services here. Now, you do what you can, but I don't think it's an isolated issue for Amazon. I think other companies, like let's say financial institutions, that depends on the continued services or patronage of many consumers here, then provide a better product or services so that consumers will not be tempted to buy another one. And competition is always good, right? At the end of the day. Anyway, so continuing with technology. So we've been talking about autonomous vehicles, self-driving vehicles. It's kind of interesting. It's the way of the future. Is it coming or is it here already? And what's interesting here is, based on the article here, according to TechCrunch, that for the autonomous vehicle using technology that relies on Lidar has not made inroads, so to speak, because of lack of demand or non-existent autonomous vehicle industry. So it's still a ways to go, but obviously companies like Tesla, other car manufacturers have been pushing. I think even Apple, who's been in the news, are considering going into the automotive industry, which is a very big industry, a very lucrative industry. So many of the products or technologies are being offered, makes a compelling case that hopefully it can be introduced into the consumer market sooner rather than later. So let's take a closer look here. So where is it? There you go. So you can see startup look beyond Lidar for autonomous vehicle consumption here. So one of the products that's being introduced is the iNet, provides collision warnings between vehicles equipped with its tech, whether they have cameras or other sensing technologies equipped or not. So, and a good example is when a car is driving through a parking lot, unaware that a person on one of those horribly unsafe electric scooters is moving perpendicular to it ahead. So about to zoom its path, but totally obscured by the parked car. So iNet is able to detect the position of those vehicles and send warnings in front or either both or to brake. So let's see here. So I think it looks something like this. There you go. So it's a sensor only visible by the cameras that they're using. I think it's the camera they're using. Yeah. So it has a vision of sorts. So obviously this is a very good technology that can be incorporated. Hopefully it's not just vehicles, but any moving vehicle, whether it's motorcycles, bikes, and so forth. Even for people, whether they have their mobile phones outright. And another is, what else? They have, what they call this. Yes, another one's they're calling it bright wave vision. So in this case, they're using RGB or normal RGB cameras having limited visibility in many real conditions by going multispectral. So different phases, right? So in addition to ordinary visible light imagery, the company camera is mated to a near-infrared beamer. So that scans the road ahead of its set distances intervals many times a second. So let's see here. Yeah, it looks this one. Yes. So what it means that if the camera can see 100 feet because of fog, the infrared here in this case will be able to catch any obstacles or road features when it scans that slice. So as you can see here in the video, so you can see different obstructions: the cone, the animal, the person, another vehicle, and a tree here. So it's multispectral, and it combines into one fluid photo, so that when you're driving at night where there's poor visibility, you can easily see what's in front of you, which is kind of tremendous. Importance of safety and avoiding any collision or harm to any people or individual in this case. Another is we have the Foresight Automotive. So they're using multispectral imagery in its camera, as I mentioned. In this case, the difference here is they're using a 360 degree coverage. Generally, multiple cameras are required, but where those cameras go differ are on the compact sedan versus the SUV from the same manufacturer. So let's see here. Yeah, it's like this one. Okay, where was I? There you go. So the point here is to simplify the calibration stage. So when a manufacturer or designer or test platform doesn't need to be laborious or retested over and over when you move the camera from one place to another. So it does the job for you. Now, obviously, Lidar is one of the more effective tools in terms of scanning, but it's kind of expensive. So until such time that it's cost reduction, similar to how solar panels work, but the point here is there are several technologies that being offered right now, this available or still being developed in the market, so that the consumers or motorists can benefit from such technologies. And if it can save lives, why not? If they charge you for a penny for it, or $1 or a peso here, obviously, or combine all of those technology into one small device, which is going to be commonplace in vehicles. So when we discuss, I think, the hyper screen of how gorgeous it looks, and then obviously you look for the safety factor, different types of technologies for scanning your surrounding, that's going to be tremendous. Now, whether it's being visible light, as mentioned, near infrared, thermal imaging, or radar or Lidar, doesn't matter, as long as it can be introduced to the market for general consumption here. Anyways, for some updates now, I think we discussed of the Super Nintendo World, which was supposed to be featured in Universal Studios Japan by Mr. Shigeru Miyamoto before. And sad news, they were supposed to open later this month. Oh no, not later. Next month by February the 4th. But Japan has expanded its state of emergency and expected to last beyond February 4th. So which means, this would impact, the opening of the theme park itself. And obviously, with the surge of cases that's happening in Japan in general, is kind of alarming here. So where was it? There you go. So as I mentioned, the state of emergency in Japan has been implemented and so far has prevented any major lockdowns, which is totally different from other countries. When you say a lockdown, you limit the movements of your citizens, right? But in this case, they're not implementing that, which is, I think, kind of backfired in a sense. And as of January 12th, the number of cases has already reached a staggering amount of 300,000 with 4,000 deaths. And that has just been recorded in the past 3 months. So you can just imagine the concern if you're a citizen there, and if you're the government, right? And it's not just that. Obviously, this impacts the business. If they would have controlled it, like, let's say, if you're in Taiwan or even in, in New Zealand, they were able to control the spread drastically and effectively at that. And obviously, it's not just a theme park that's stake here because people can visit it and business could suffer at the end. And this could cast a big question mark whether the delayed already of the Tokyo Olympics, which was supposed to be slated 2020, summer of 2020, has been pushed to already summer 2021. There may be a trend that it might be even pushed to the following year. So we just have to wait and see what will happen. And the rising cases and the accelerated pace. So it's not just a rising number, it's the pace of how fast the number has reached in the past 3 weeks is concerning and alarming. So obviously, according to the national death toll, the link of COVID-19 grew by a daily record of 97 to 4,289. So that's a big jump. So obviously, the cumulative total number of coronavirus cases has already reached, as I mentioned, more than 300,000. So people are concerned here, young and old. And obviously, for the Japanese government, the issuance of the state of emergency is necessary for Tokyo and for the other neighboring cities. So if you live in Chiba, Saitama, and Kanagawa, just be aware that there will be a issuance. Now, whether they can implement the lockdown is a totally different matter. Anyway, for some local news, now we've been talking of the spread of the virus and so forth, right? And obviously, one would think that one of the priorities of any government, right, or any business at that, is to safeguard the people that are working in an organization or the citizens of any country. But sad to say, for our 2021 budget, the Philippines sought to focus on other aspects of the budget, which is kind of disappointing. And it's not the health that we're prioritizing based on the data that will be shown later on. So what was, I won't say concerning, what was funny, if you think about it, the 2021 budget was being hyped as a pandemic budget to help ease the burden of, the medical supplies, the facilities, helping every part of the logistics process, and especially for the vaccines, how it's going to be provided for everyone, right? But that's not the case. Actually, what happened is the budget for the 2020 increased by 10%, which is good in a sense. But majority of its projects has focused primarily on infrastructure projects, building of bridges, roads, buildings. Yeah, it makes sense. I guess you need to help businesses, but at the end of the day, you need people to build it. If people get sick, no one's going to build it, right? And the point of trying to mitigate the pandemic, it doesn't make sense, and it's somewhat counterintuitive. And let's dive deeper here. So in terms of the funding of the vaccine, which is kind of funny, they've only allotted 2.5 billion. Now, some may say it's a big amount, but 2.5 billion is chump change if you did the math here. So let me show you here. So if it's 2.5 billion of amount that is allocated for the vaccines, can you guess how many people would be vaccinated if the cost of each vaccine, or in this case you need 2 doses, that's 3,629.5 pesos. So the 2 billion will only get you to almost 700,000 people. 700,000 people. And take note, that's less than 1% of our total population. We're roughly a little over 100 million as of this year. So we need that herd mentality. We need a majority of our population to be inoculated or vaccinated so that everyone can be protected in the long run. And 1% is not going to get us anywhere. And guess who's going to get that 1%? Who will be prioritized, right? That's another question altogether. And there were mentioned that there are additional 70 billion that is as good as funded. As good as funded from where? And they're saying that it's going to be funded by foreign loans and grants from multilateral agencies. So we're depending on other people, not on our own government, from the World Bank and the Asian Development Bank, right? And obviously this adds another layer of uncertainty as to, what are we even doing here, right? And boasting that we have 82 billion from the 2.5 billion I just mentioned earlier is kind of hokey in a sense, because inflating the numbers is one thing, and the problem here is, let's assume that you are able to procure for everyone, right? It's not just getting the vaccine is the problem. Is the logistics of the vaccine deployment is another, as mentioned in the article. How do you store it, right? Where are you supposed to store it? You need a proper facility to manage those vaccine. And in terms of people who are going to vaccinate it, they need to be properly trained, right? And obviously getting them administered is a more complex thing. It's not just like, drawing a blood and so forth, right? So, and let's see here. So, where was it? There you go. So let's take a closer look here. So based on the data here, it's very concerning. Now, yeah, before I forget, so in terms of the budget here, as mentioned, the 2.5 is the one that's for sure that's going to be allocated for the vaccine. As for the rest, look at the term unprogrammed appropriation. Who's going to provide that? Low cost and long-term loans. So we're going to incur more debt and so forth. Which is, what's fun here is, as mentioned, the Department of Finance, of all departments in the government, release a graphic like the one I mentioned, inflates the government vaccine budget, which is misleading and very dangerous. And they shouldn't casually or recklessly, say, we have another extra 40 or 50 billion to shoulder or to spend, and another 20 to spend in terms of, and where are you going to get those information or going to get those at the end of the day? And can you guarantee that you're going to be able to provide for everyone and so forth? Anyway, as mentioned, so regarding the different projects that was prioritized, so here's the key here. So the summary of budget for 2021, as mentioned, so take a look here. The number one priority of the government is Department of Public Works, so DPWH, and it has an increase. It has a budget of north of 255 million, right, pesos, increase of almost 60%, right? And look what's next. It's the education sector, which only get 33 million. Sorry, 33 million. The billion, my mistake, sorry. So 33 billion, only increase of 5%. And again, with the pandemic that's going on, one would think that the health would be a priority, especially for other countries, as mentioned. So let's take a look closer at the bottom and see now. So you can see here the justice, TESDA was not prioritized. Tourism, took a decrease in terms of their budget. And then you have the DNR. You can see here SB Corp took a significant change. Dole also, and you can see at the end. You can see here the Department of Health has a reduction of, lost 40 billion. So that's a decrease of 23%. And then you have agriculture. And what's worrying is the DSWD even suffered the biggest loss here. So the gains at the end of the day are the public works. The losers here at the end of the day are the people here, meaning people are this who needs to be taken care of, the children, the elderlies, and so forth. And then obviously the health of the people of the nation should be prioritized. I don't know what's more important, because at the end of the day, how can you improve the state of the country if there's no people to run it with, right? You need people, you need employees, you need workers, and so forth. If they're sick, doesn't matter if you have the facilities. Who's going to build them anyway, right? And that's a big problem. And one of the issues, as stated by one of the senators, Mr. Panfilo Lacson, stated that the billion pesos project worth 68 billion pesos are, based on the news of skeleton project we're in, multi-million, multi-purpose buildings that have been left unfinished. Where did the money go to, right? So, that's one of the other issues. And, obviously at the end of the day, the economic recession is still raging. So at the end of the day, we need to prioritize first, help save our people, recover the economy so that we can move forward from here. And obviously, the issue here is the health of the Filipino people, as well as what will happen to them. Will they be still in poverty? Can we help them get out of poverty is another thing. And obviously, wasting money on projects that does not address an immediate problem is, somewhat a missed opportunity, so to speak. And that should have been, money should have been put directly, as mentioned in the article, directly to the hands of our fellow countrymen or fellow Filipinos here. Anyway, finally, for our last story here. Now, for some uplifting story here. Now, I don't know if you're familiar with sea shanties or singing sea shanties. That's a tongue twister. So it was introduced by a person last year, by the name of Nathan Evans, a 26-year-old Scottish postman and aspiring musician, shared a video of himself on TikTok, singing the sea shanty called "Soon May the Wellerman Come." Now, what was interesting here, it's nothing too unusual about the song, but it went viral. So let's see what happened here. So where was it? So as you can clearly see here, so now what is a sea shanty to begin with? Okay, now sea shanty is a way to create a sense of community years back, or hundreds of years ago, way back in the 1700s all the way to the 1800s. So they share the community, share the purpose. So meaning merchant marine vessels at that time, a shantyman would lead sailors in a song as they work, distracting them from the toil, enlivening their task, and establishing a rhythm. So it's a way of life, sort of. So the earliest sea shanty could be could be as old as seafaring itself. Now, what's interesting here is it's nothing different about the song here, but the point of the song, where it originates, how it's promoted in this platform. So let's take a closer look here. So here, where was it? Yeah, so here's, let's start again. Let me try to reload this one. Where was it? There you go. Crap, there you go. So let's see if you can hear it. Hopefully you can hear the audio. There you go. So let me listen here. There you go. Is it starting? No, can't start. It's not starting. The heck, it's not starting. Why is it not starting? Well, anyway, it was an interesting story here wherein the person here was singing the Wellerman, as mentioned. It was a very interesting concept, and then other people sang along using the platform, as mentioned, to promote the song, and it went viral, right? Let's see here. Can you play it? Yeah, you can play it here. Why can't I play it here? Let me try to reset or replay the message. Hopefully I can play it. It's a very interesting song. So you can watch it later, or you can check it out in YouTube, or in, what do you call this, in TikTok if you have one.
Was a ship that put to sea. The name of the ship was a billy of tea. The winds blew up her bow, dipped down below, my billy boys blow. Soon may the wellerman come to bring us sugar and tea and rum. One day when the tonguing is done, we'll take our leave and go.
So it's a very, nice song. Nothing too different about it. But what's important is using the platform TikTok. Other people can join in using the existing song, and you can sing on top of it. So let's see another one here.
Ship that put to sea. The name of the ship was a billy of tea. The winds blew up her bow, dipped down below, my billy boys blow. Soon may the wellerman come to bring us sugar and tea and rum. One day when the tonguing is done, we'll take our leave and go. She had not.
Yeah. So as you can see here, it's very interesting that how they use technology to promote a song, and it goes viral. And it's not just incorporating other people to sing. And what's funny about is there was a song that was it includes Kermit the Frog to sing in the background here. I think I can show you here.
That put to sea. The name of the ship was a billy of tea.
So you can see the different people on top of one another.
Soon may the wellerman come to bring us sugar and tea and rum. One day when the tonguing is done, we'll take our leave and go.
Anyway, it's a very interesting story, and it's a very uplifting. Nothing too what do you call this, controversial in a sense, and obviously it's popularized by the band Longest Johns, covered in 2018. Now, according to a academic musician actually in Cambridge, they said that Wellerman is not really a shanty of sorts. It's a wailing song with a beat of shanty, and its purpose is that of a ballad to tell a story and not to help sailors keep time. But does it matter whether it's keeping time, or is it about seafarers at the end of the day? And the point here is, if it's a good music, people like to listen to it, and if it goes viral, then good for them. Here's to more power to them. Anyway, that concludes our discussion for today. If you have any questions, feel free to check in the link in the description below to read the full article here. As always, thanks for watching. I'll see you again next week, same time, same channel. There are people here. Good afternoon to everyone who's able to join me today. Good day to everyone. So as always, as mentioned, we'll do this again next time. So same time, same channel. Take care, everyone.